Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our Nancy Drew Games review series, where we are ranking every single Nancy Drew game on 6 key aspects, being the story and premise of each game, the suspects, the puzzles, the music, the atmosphere, and the ending. I'm your host, Jameson.
And I'm Julian. What's going on, everybody?
And today we are reviewing Nancy Drew 26, Tomb of the Lost Queen.
I remember when this case came out, actually. It was actually the trailer that got me super into it. I showed a bunch of my friends and I was like, this is gonna be the game. And I wanted to get a bunch of my friends into Nancy Drew, so I'm not sure why I have such a fond memory of the hype being built up for this game, but the question is, did it exceed the hype? I think it's a really good game, comes short in a little bit of areas, but what it ultimately exceeded in was displaying a great Egyptian-themed mystery, very unique suspect motivations, and just really nice done puzzles.
Yeah, this was probably the first game that I remember waiting for it to come out. By the time that I had played everything in the franchise, this was the first game that I was really following, when's this one going to launch.
Right. And,
man, sometimes I feel like I'm more fond of it in my memories than I am when I actually replayed it. And it's because for that reason there is a lot of nostalgia in this game, because this game didn't just have nostalgia going for it, it did have hype. But there's stuff to be said in every category about it, so I think we might as well go ahead and get into the story or premise. Nancy has been recommended by Franklin Rose from Game 6 to come and accompany this archaeological dig going on. Nancy's been on the crew for a while now, which is exploring a tomb of some sort that has been uncovered by a giant sandstorm, and it is believed to be the site where QV-66 went missing almost 60 years ago. That was a British expedition team in the mid-20th century that went out searching for what they believed to be the lost Queen Nefertari's tomb, and none of them ever returned alive.
Not to get into atmosphere, but the tomb is beautiful. Yeah. I think it's amazing. They did a super good job of crafting this Egyptian, millions of years old tomb.
The tomb is the entire game, yeah.
Pretty much, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger, which I love and appreciate. But after a couple days there, the game actually starts under the impression Nancy's been there a couple days, but a huge sandstorm rolls in, and you hear some people screaming. Nancy's just chilling outside in the midst of a sandstorm, as one does, but she rushes inside, and John Boyle, the lead of the expedition, has been knocked over the head or something like that. He's grabbing his head, he's on the ground, he's in pain, and then it just cuts to a phone call with him.
Yeah, they call an ambulance for John, and most of the team just takes off in a frantic hurry, convinced that the sandstorm was the curse that allegedly haunts the tomb. Or whatever it is, because at this point we don't know whose tomb this is or if it even is a tomb. And so, the expedition's going to be called off. There's only 3 people left on the site, including Nancy. And John says that the doctors say there's reason to believe that he was actually attacked and he wasn't just struck by some sort of flying debris from the sandstorm. So
I guess that sets up the mystery to be who attacked John, but it gradually morphs into something much bigger.
Yes. Oh man, so this game, let's see, that's about all the story and premise that you could ask for it. You just go right into exploring the main tent and the expedition tent, and then going right into the site itself.
All of these suspects in this game are extremely diverse. Each of them have really cool motivations, some of them interact really cool and unique with each other, and overall I really can't pick a weak one. I enjoyed talking to all of them. They all have massive egos, some of them are a little fearful. I don't know, we just get a really wide range in this, so it was really cool, and I think we should jump into suspects now.
With Lily.
You want to start with Lily? Yeah, sure.
I think Lily's the best one to start with. So
Lily's the first suspect you meet.
She's the only other person who kind of roosts in the main tent. There are, like 3 or 4 different tent bunks. One's Nancy's.
There's like 6, I think.
Well, yeah, but like the only ones that are in use.
Okay, yeah.
There's Nancy's, Abdullah's, Lily's, and then John's, which just is kind of vacant, more or less. Just has his luggage that they weren't able to bring out with him when they shipped him to the hospital. Lily is maybe just a year or 2 older than Nancy. She's a college student. She's here on some sort of studying abroad program.
She starts off really bratty, and I'm not sure what she's trying to prove, but she instantly assumes leadership, and she bosses Nancy around. She makes it very clear that she's the authority here. And
it's interesting because she says, I don't know what you've been told, but now that John Boyle's gone, I'm in charge for the time being. And
it's like, no, you're not.
It's interesting, though, because you can kind of, like, talk to her and she backs down. Because you can say, like, are you sure that Abdullah or the other people on the site are going to agree with that? And then she backs down and goes, I just mean the American team, which is just you. And then it's just like, Okay, nice job, Lily. That's a failed power play, and you just tried to dominate yourself over me and say that you're our authority.
What I associate most with Lily's character is her obsession with curses, and it's not revealed until like 3/4 of the way through the game that she's actually in a ton of fear. She thinks that her fate is already determined, that a curse is already upon her, and that she's gonna die, like, soon.
Yeah, Lily's very afraid to be out in the desert by herself. She just spends all day poring over this book called Curses of the World, the Compendium of Creepy Curses and Curious Catastrophes or something. It's just another C word. There's just tons of C's in that title.
So my theory, though, is that Lily puts on this facade that she's, like, all-powerful and authoritative, when in actuality she's obviously super scared, but she doesn't want to come off that way. It's more or less just to compensate all of her fears that she's already been cursed, because as we come to learn, she thinks curses are the real deal, and they have the same fatality rates as kayaking in a stream with a hungry grizzly bear who's also holding dynamite.
Whitewater rafting with a hungry bear who's holding a stick of dynamite and also has the bird flu. I don't know where she got that statistic, but that's deadly. Lily is also the only character who will play Senet, the really old, shoddy ancient Egyptian board game that, like, she pretends is fun because she's an Egyptophile and just likes ancient Egyptian history, but really, Senet sucks. It was such a downgrade from Raid.
What are you okay, you can't compare it to Raid.
They're both board games.
One is 3 million years older. I thought Senet was pretty cool.
It's 3,000 years old, not 3 million.
I appreciated Senet because I feel as though it was a pretty accurate depiction of what an ancient Egyptian board game might have been like.
It is an ancient Egyptian board game.
Yeah, exactly. We can't hold it to the same standards as Raid. I thought it was pretty cool, and it was a nice way of displaying their culture through a cool little game.
But it's cool because it's historical. It's not fun to play. Every time that I ever click on that thing, I just get so angry because I realize I have to go through the whole, like, 3-minute tutorial before I can back away.
Yeah, the tutorial is terrible, and you should be able to back out at any time.
Lily studies directly under Abdullah Bakum, who has put himself in charge of the site now that John Boyle is gone. Abdullah is... oh, man.
He's Ramses II.
Yeah, you know, in hindsight, I wish I put him in the top 15 list.
No, I don't think he's deserving, but he is a great suspect.
Abdullah is very, very interesting. He's well known in the field of archaeology. He is December on Professor Hotchkiss's Men of Archaeology calendar.
And boy, is he another suspect with an ego.
Oh yeah, you know what? Gonna say it right here, he is the most egotistical suspect in any Nancy Drew.
Yeah, he's very self-absorbed, but it kind of comes off in a funny light. I don't know, he goes on these great dialogues about how he's Ramses II and how he thinks like a great pharaoh would back then. And there's a bunch of really cool conversations that you can have with him, but at times his dialogue can get a little bit dry. It's just a lot of repeated stuff and him rephrasing how great he is.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of his charm is just his spotty Egyptian accent, and just how he kind of speaks in broken English, but seems like he always has something to say. He's very talkative, even if, like, he's not speaking in his native language, which I think kind of speaks mountains about him.
The entire game, he's working on one translation that Nancy can solve in a quick second.
And then the one cartouche.
Yeah, and then when Nancy actually solves a translation that he ordered her to solve, like, he's like, oh, beginner's luck. I just wanted to slap him when he said that. I was like, come on.
Yeah. Abdullah is an interesting dude, for sure. I'd say I'd call him my favorite suspect in the game. And spoiler alert, I think he makes an excellent culprit too, because he is not a very easy to expect culprit. You would probably assume that it's someone who seems a bit more benign, like Lily or Jamila, as far as the game goes.
That's fair. Someone who's so bold and so just demanding, you don't expect that person to be the culprit, but it was a pretty good reveal at the end of the game, and we'll talk about that in the ending part of our review, but I thought it was pretty well done.
As Dylan says, who we'll talk about in a second, he's either the best or the guy who can shout, "I'm the best," the loudest. I think that he might as well be both, honestly.
We also learned through a couple of dialogues that are off-screen that he has a very short temper. Multiple times he screams at other suspects. We never get to see it, sadly. But we get the impression that this is not a guy you want to be around when he's angry.
Yeah, he's a regular Malachi Craven when it comes to his temper. There's one part where Nancy goes, "Are you even okay with Jamila being on the site?" And he just chuckles and then says no. And then he just goes right away and ends the conversation. You just hear him shouting with Jamila, and they get into a screaming match. Same thing happens with Lily when you're coming down from the column scaffolding at one point. But man, it's oh, that Abdullah is a tricky fella.
Alright, you want to start to cover Jamila now, who is actually my favorite suspect?
Alright, well, if she's your favorite suspect, then how about you cover her?
Okay, I like Jamila the most because of her character transition at the very end and how she rises to become a hero and helps save Nancy and all this stuff, but she's got a very interesting character trait. No, what am I saying? But she's got a very interesting personality. See, her whole thing is an obsession with the Anunnaki, which is, as she claims to be some alien group that built the pyramids. She just basically comes off as a huge, crazy conspiracy theorist. Someone that you would instantly shirk off like a flat earther. I don't know. Hopefully none of her fans are flat earthers here, gosh.
Oh, we're gonna lose 66 subscribers right now.
But Jamila's really easygoing. I really like her, and it comes to be known at the end of the game that she is actually here to eavesdrop on Abdullah because she's a full believer that this tomb is the tomb of Nefertari, and that she is a part of a very ancient, like, almost cult type of deal.
It's more like a secret society. It's difficult to tell exactly what Jamila's motives are because she is very secretive. She has multiple facades that she plays throughout the whole game. In short, I believe the end game with Jamila is that she's a part of an old secret society. I don't remember what they're called specifically, but the idea is that they must protect the tomb of Nefertari at all costs, and if the tomb is to be found, they must make sure that she is exhumed with respect and not stolen or sold on a black market or anything. And so she actually kind of cleverly says that her whole objective is to, quote, hide it in plain sight, where Abdullah is very egotistical, and he does not fear stupid people, and he does not suspect them to be capable of anything. So the whole time, Jamila is running this stupid, fake Sunny June alien facade, and that way Abdullah just thinks, oh, she's just some idiot space cadet who thinks that humans are too stupid to have built the pyramids.
Yeah, that was pretty clever.
Makes you feel like an idiot if you say that you believe her when she talks about aliens multiple times in the game.
I know. And that was kind of funny that they brought in that stereotype that some people think that the pyramids were built by aliens and all this stuff.
Let us know in the comments, do you think that people invented pushing and pulling like your boy Abdullah says? Or do you think that it was the Anunnaki? Jamila is the first suspect, probably since like, you know, Joanna Riggs and Manette, but even more so, that is directly involved with Sunny June. She claims that she took Sunny June's Are You Alien or Ali Out course, and that it changed her life. And I know that this is all for a cover, but it's still just very fascinating because she claims that she still did meet Sunny June, and that he's special or something, and that there's something about him that she just thinks is important.
Yeah, that was cool. I like the Sunny June reference.
I like that Nancy, for the first time ever, can say, "Who is Sunny June? I've seen his name everywhere, but I have no idea who he is." That was just really cool to me.
Okay. In short, Jamila's character is sly and crafty, and she has a really nice presence in the endgame. So I would toss her up to be my favorite suspect.
Now, here's the thing. I thought that your favorite was always Dylan.
Yeah, after replaying this game, I thought Dylan served a really small purpose in this game.
Honestly, yeah, he shows up about after the first 20% mark, and then he leaves the second half of the game.
Yeah, he's barely in it.
Honestly, he's probably in this game just as much as Guadalupe is in White Wolf of Icicle Creek.
Well, it made me think, like, what real purpose does he serve to the story? Could the game flow without him? Almost yes, although I can see why he has some relevance. So I guess we'll break down his character now. Dylan is a tour guide, and the way you meet him is super weird. It's after you break into the first tomb, and you just turn around and, well, there's Dylan. I think Nancy even says, "What? Who's this?"
Brilliant!
Yeah, that was pretty good, actually.
He's a savvy photojournalist who doesn't play by the rules. But in all seriousness, though, he is a savvy British tour guide who also doesn't play by the rules. He and Lisa Ostrom would really get along. He even, like, bold-faced lies to Nancy at one point and says, "Oh, tour guides often make up their own credentials, you know, it's just part of the industry." And then, like, you can just call John later and say, like, "Hey, is this true?" And John's like, "No."
Well, he actually served one of my favorite monologues in the game where he goes on his fake tour guide idea, and Nancy has to ask him like weird questions, like why don't the pyramids have gift shops and stuff like that? And he goes on this funny little spiel about being a tour guide.
Excellent question. No one knows.
Yeah, that's what he has to say to every question. He's pretty much breaking down how being a tour guide can be a scam if you play your cards right. He's a charm though, and who is it? I think some of the girls actually have a crush on him. Like, I think Lily's like, good thing he's easy on the eyes. And I think Nancy's like, yeah, I second that. But, what is his tie to the black market? Isn't he actually there to fence off stuff?
Yeah. So, he gets the classic Henrik Vanderheen treatment halfway through the game where, you know, he gets real busted up and gets sent to the hospital. I have no idea how he didn't die of his wounds or internal bleeding or just regular bleeding, because civilization is so far away from this spot out in the middle of the desert. But sure enough, he gets to the hospital. It seems very bad because he says to Nancy when you call him that the doctors won't let him sleep because they think if he goes to sleep he'll die.
Yeah, pretty serious stuff.
He's not doing so well. We'll get into just what happens to him in a bit. But Dylan has something of a... really, he is a culprit, but just not for the crime that we're looking for. At one point of the game, we're directed to go sorting some amulets that were left behind by Lily in the Antiquities tent, and just to figure out what relics represent what in Egyptian culture, or rather ancient Egyptian culture. And we find that one of them is missing. We go to the other side of the tent where there's a hole cut in it, and we find a receipt claiming that somebody would be willing to sell, like, one of these antique things of a monkey for 14,000 euros or something. Mm-hmm. So basically, Dylan is very, very, very sketchy in that regard. As Abdullah would say, he's just one of those sticky-fingered thieves who brings tourists to the pyramids, and they take the entire thing with them in their suitcases piece by piece. And sure enough, there he goes, not just like stealing a grain of sand or a piece from the pyramid to sell as souvenirs, but an actual ancient Egyptian relic that belongs in a museum.
I definitely didn't see that coming from his character, but at the same time, he had to serve some purpose. Like, he couldn't just be this innocent little tour guide. I loved the majority of my conversations with him, though. He is pretty witty and charming, but... You must cut that. Okay. And that. In conclusion, Dylan's character is really witty. I'm glad that he served some sort of significance with the black market and all that going on, but it just felt weird that he comes in like 20% into the game and then leaves like halfway through it. It's just, if he stayed around longer, I think he would have had a lot more to serve. But
yeah, that's one thing that I don't like with games that only have 4 suspects to begin with, is when they just pull one of the suspects out of the game halfway through it, because then it's just like, okay, they're not the culprit. Unlike the next game where they do the opposite.
Okay. You want to talk about puzzles now?
Okay, let me
I think we've got suspect.
Mark the audio. So now
stop playing with that.
Okay, so now we are getting into puzzles, and puzzles for this game are very, very good.
Yeah, I think that it's one of the best parts tied with atmosphere about this game, because puzzles did a super good... I can't say super good. It's bad grammar. Because puzzles did a very good job of incorporating Egyptian hieroglyphics. Because puzzles did a really good job of incorporating Egyptian hieroglyphics and culture and learning a bunch of things about Nefertari's sons and daughters. It was all really cool. And
Amun-Herkhepeshef, meaning Amun is with his strong arm or something.
Something like that. But then there's also really cool things about like the amulets and what certain objects and animals represented to Egyptians back then.
Some of them have clever explanations that you can figure out yourself, like lizards were symbolic for regeneration because they could grow back their tails, and it's just, it really puts you back in that world, because historically speaking, this is the Nancy Drew that deals with the oldest time frame.
The point I'm trying to make, though, is that this game does a really good job of coming off as educational while still maintaining that fun factor, and I really appreciate when a Nancy Drew game pulls that off.
Definitely. I wanted to wait till atmosphere to say this, but I guess it's so important. I love ancient Egyptian media. I feel like there is nowhere near enough of it. Like the original Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser, that's cool and all, but it gets a little goofy. I gotta find that old Magic Treehouse book with the mummy. It's like the 3rd book, I think. But I always love ancient Egyptian stories and stuff like that. I don't care if they take place way back then, or if they're in some sort of fictional universe, or if it's just at a dig site like in this. I think they're just a really, really fascinating kind of stories that come from a really interesting world that's so long gone.
So, what's your favorite puzzle in this game? First of all, would you say it's one of the more difficult games?
I would say it's more difficult than your average game, yeah. There are a couple of puzzles that are absolutely insane, like being able to translate the names of Nefertari's sons and daughters. Now, that wasn't as difficult as I remember, because the names lock into place when you get them right. The big kicker in that puzzle, and I feel like they should make this more obvious, is that if in someone's name there is a god, then that god's character or hieroglyphic goes at the beginning of the name, kind of like ancient Egyptian grammar or syntax. But we just kind of had to figure that out on our own.
What we're talking about here is the second Sarcophagus puzzle. It's having to list out Nefertari's 4 sons and 3 daughters. Not necessarily... Oh, wait, yeah, in order, from youngest to oldest, or oldest to youngest.
Yeah, oldest to youngest.
That was a really clever puzzle through a couple of nice phone calls with Professor Hotchkiss, a really nice callback to Professor Hotchkiss's character. She served a great purpose in this game. We learned all about her 7 daughters and sons, and it was really nice to just learn and solve a tough puzzle. It just was super satisfying to finally open that second sarcophagus that led to nothing.
Just, well, I mean, there was another puzzle in it, so...
Yeah, that's true.
Really, this is just a giant puzzle box. So if I had to pick a favorite puzzle in the game, I honestly might say, if only for nostalgia's sake, the relics puzzle. I always thought that the relics was cool. I loved the, what else was it? I also really enjoyed the cat balancing puzzle in the cat's tomb, where you just need to weigh all the different little cat objects to figure out which one is the lightest.
I liked the puzzle of rearranging the pillars so that Nancy can hop across them, go up.
I still don't understand it.
It was a little nonsensical. Oh, I got it, but you essentially had to find out, first of all, placing these 4 gods in an order.
The 4 of Horus.
The 4 of Horus, yeah. I'm a little foggy on the order or how you determine it, more or less. But once you gave them in the order, you have to like turn them around in a certain way, go back into the main lobby to check what corresponds to which pillars. It's kind of trial and error at first, but it was super cool, and it was also incredibly unique.
Yeah. Now,
so I got to give you credit for that.
I am not kidding you when I say this. We completely guessed the order that the amulets go in that we find in the canopic jars. We were just moving them around, and then Nancy said something, and they stayed in place. And then we went around looking for how to figure out when to rotate them. And then we came back, and I messed around with it some more, and in like 10 seconds, we had guessed the solution again. So to this day, I still have no idea how you're supposed to figure that out. I'm just glad that we got lucky.
I've solved it legit before. It's just trial and error, having to move one of them, see what it corresponded to, which pillar, and then kind of guessing through there. But what's another great puzzle? What I liked about this game is how they dealt with translation, and that's the first puzzle, the first translation puzzle you come across, you have to do legit, which is great. And then after that, we get a really nice quick translate button for every single translation in the rest of the game.
If there was quick translation in Ransom of the Seven Ships, that would instantly just make it so much better, in my opinion.
Yeah, quick translation was godsend in this game. It would be less of my favorite games if I had to manually like decipher every single Egyptian writing. I would not have liked that.
Maybe on Senior Detective you have to. I'm not sure.
Well, okay, and then another puzzle that comes to mind is one that's right off the start. I really enjoyed opening the tomb and having to like shift the forward column so that...
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, it's really tough to describe, but it's just shifting tiles in an order so that everything has a corresponding hieroglyph at the bottom, and then it opens a tomb.
You know the thing about that puzzle is, once you have the cartouche at the bottom in order, the door immediately opens, and everyone just goes exposes in the door, and they completely forget to use their dictionary to translate whatever it says on the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So I myself, I don't remember what that says. So that's just crazy to think about. Okay, so any puzzles in this game you think were particularly abysmal? There's the classic reflector mirror puzzles. They introduced that for lighting up the tombs. I don't know how accurate the Mummy with Brendan Fraser is, but they have that in those movies too. where they claim that ancient Egyptians used to light up their rooms with mirrors that would just reflect the sun's rays all across the room and essentially light it up by way of reflection.
I didn't really like the shifting boulders for Dylan to live. We goofed that one up a couple times, and it took me a minute to... It's more logic-based than anything, but it just came off a little silly. And also, I don't understand it. Like, where was Dylan? How was he... I just have some questions for that, but not one of my favorite puzzles. All in all, though, I mean, it's tough to think of a bad one. I think cumulatively, this was a really good puzzle game.
Yeah, I second that. I just feel like there were a couple of really hard puzzles, but not impossible. Plus, this game features the in-game hints, so that's always nice for being able to just cheese your way through the tough stuff. So now we're moving on to music for this game. Music in this game is honestly almost forgettable. I mean, I really like parts of it because the idea is that it's ancient Egyptian instruments and ancient Egyptian culture, but that's a kind of culture that didn't really survive so well when it came to, like, musical transference.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that it served a good purpose when it came to atmosphere, but nothing's catchy.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like
it's not something you would want to listen to in your free time.
It's like jazz, almost. Oh, gosh, I don't even know the names of the instruments.
It's like, I can't quite knock it, because it's still good music that serves the game's purpose really well.
It contributes to the setting, but just the setting. There's nothing that you would want to like listen to on your free time. Here's an example of a game where an ancient society still has really good music. Secret of the Scarlet Hen. That soundtrack, I'll go ahead and say it, much better than this one, even with the other game's other faults. And that game also had music that dealt with the themes of an ancient, long-lost society. And I think partly that's because a lot of the instruments that were used in that soundtrack are still commonly used today, like the maracas and stuff like that. That's some groovy stuff, even if it has nothing to do with Washington, D.C. But this game and Alibi and Ashes, I would honestly call this the darkest point in the franchise for soundtracks. These two games had a huge dip.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's not necessarily bad, it's just not catchy, not quite fun, but it serves a purpose for the setting. So let's get into some specific track titles now.
We only have a couple today because many of them just sound similar, and otherwise nothing is so remarkable.
You know what? That's another critique, is they're all extremely similar. But yeah, let's name some tracks here.
So my first track that I want to talk about is the Camp track from this game. Camp just plays mainly when you're above the surface. It's just a very upbeat track for the most part. It's got something of a drum in the background. Again, I'm not very much of an expert in this culture, so I don't even know what these instruments are specifically called. But
it's just more or less slow and cheerful.
Yeah, it's got an inspirational vibe. Goes for that ancient Egyptian vibes that I really enjoy. This, to me, is the track that most accentuates the idea of being Ramses II with Abdullah and surveying your vast kingdom and everything that the sun touches and how it's yours. So I'll go ahead and play that right here.
Okay, I'll jump into my favorite track, which is Dance. And Dance plays everywhere in the game. It doesn't necessarily stay in the tomb or above the tomb. It's really cheerful. I don't know, it's just very cheerful, very good for exploring, which is a key component to this game, so it served its purpose really well. But at the same time, it's just missing that factor that would make me want to listen to it outside of playing the game. So here's Dance right now.
Now, before we get into the last track, I just want to bring up real quick that the Danger track from this game was actually quite exceptional. There are, like, what, 2 or 3 verifiable dangerous moments in the game where this music will play, and I think that this was a perfect pick for those moments. So this is always just a nice, intense track to play with just going ham on the bongos.
This track I associate most with loading up the game, and we get the nice little artwork with load game, save game, new game, all this stuff. It is Ancient. It's probably the most prominent track in the entire game. You hear it everywhere, and it's really well done for the most part. It's another cheerful track. There's strings and flutes.
I don't know if I'd call it cheerful. It's a very mystic track. Honestly, my favorite part might just be the little spring to life at the beginning with whatever instrument that is. It's like you just kind of ran your fingers across a xylophone or something like that.
Yeah.
Not even. Just, gosh, I am so bad with these instruments.
I know.
Anyways, we'll just play it right here. Music is better heard than described. Atmosphere for this game. Now, there's a lot of things that I like about this game. I think I might have to give atmosphere the best part, though. This was a brilliant location to put a Nancy Drew game. I almost wondered sometimes, before this game came out, I wanted to love to go to ancient Egypt, or would that be like too ambitious? How would they make it work? This was an excellent setting.
What I really love about the atmosphere is that it starts off kind of small. It's like just a remote little tomb, but as you go and investigate more, you uncover secret passageway on top of secret passageway, hidden tomb on top of hidden tomb, and they all connect at the end. And it makes it actually like double the original size of the tomb, which was super cool.
Really, at least 75% of this game takes place underground in the tomb, and I thought that was cool, that they didn't try to like snake around and make the important things happen somewhere else. They had everything directly happen inside the tomb for the most part. There's only a couple of puzzles that take place on the mainland. There's a cool encounter where someone leaves a cobra in your bed and you have to get it out of the tent, but otherwise not much happens on the main floor.
With the atmosphere, we'll morph in a cutscene or two, and I think it's fair to bring up the first real big puzzle you solve, which unlocks the first tomb. And this is really important because at this time, we still don't know whose tomb this is that we're exploring. We know it's obviously royalty because this is a beautiful, intricate tomb, but we still don't have a name on it, hence the name of the game, Lost Queen. Once we break in here, we get this cool cutscene. This is actually the first time we meet Jamila and Dylan's character, and then the lights go out, the flames go out, and Abdullah orders everyone out saying it's the curse. This was a really cool way of bringing the curse aspect into the game while also adding the exploration and discovering more tombs.
Now, huge critique I have for this game. I say that this could do with the Kapu Cave treatment that we discussed, where this game could really use a day and night cycle, where at least it would take place over the course of a few days, like how Shadow Ranch does. But above that, I feel like this had potential to become one of the scariest games. This had an amazing setting for just anything scary going down. It's so super isolated, super enclosed space. Claustrophobia, for one thing, gets crazy in this game. But they just didn't really do anything with it. This was more of an adventure game where it could have been really scary. I would call Captive Curse scarier than this game, and that one was meant to be an adventure game too. And to me, they were setting it up to be a really scary game at some parts, because there was one part in like before the first half that was very well done storytelling wise. When Nancy first uncovers this hidden door to the false tomb and it's sealed, Nancy goes, "Oh wow, it's still sealed." And she touches the seal to take a look at it, and it just turns to dust and completely shatters in her hands. She just goes, "Oops." And once the whole cutscene happens where everyone just freaks out and thinks there's a curse in the tomb, Nancy finds a cartouche that she translates with her dictionary, and it says that all these horrible things about, like, this place is sacred, curse you if you have been here, you have the agonies of death and everything. And Nancy notices that at the bottom of the cartouche, there is still a passage which is untranslated, and she can't figure out what it says. And so you decipher that same as anything else, and the final translation reads, "As for the one who broke the seal, the agonies of death await you."
That would have been really cool. I mean, I don't even think that's like a mandatory thing you have to look at to solve the case, but if that was morphed in with the cutscene and we get this ominous threat that curses are now coming our way, it would have done the game a great favor to add a little more spooks in it.
God, Message in a Haunted Mansion was scarier than this game.
I know, I agree with you that it missed its potential there.
But it still did a very good job of being ancient Egyptian media, which I applaud it for, because I love that stuff.
So, I'm trying to think now, my favorite secret passageway is probably the burial for Nefertari's cat. I don't know why, but as I walk down that corridor and I see like the 6 cat statues that are on each side, it was really cool.
There are a couple of somewhat spooky happenings that happen through the game. there are like intense moments, like where Nancy first gets this cat tomb open, Dylan wanders in blindfolded pretty much just into the darkness.
Where did he come from?
Yeah, he came out of nowhere. Second time Dylan's done that. And he just wanders into the darkness and causes a cave-in, and he gets crushed under rocks, and Nancy has to save him, and then he goes to the hospital, and you don't see him for the second half of the game.
Yeah, that was stinky.
But there are some other cool things, though, that are well-timed, but they just seem like they had no payoff. Like, it kind of going in theme with the curse. You have the part where the water tank, which everyone desperately needs in order to stay alive. By the way, it was super silly in this game how they actually included a death where Nancy could kill herself by drinking too much water and diluting her blood. That was so random. Imagine if they had that in any other game where Nancy can eat or drink. Just like, oh, what if a character eats, like, you know...
Too many jellyfish and sardine sandwiches from Danger on Deception Island.
Yes, we need to make sure that we accurately portray a jellyfish and sardine overdose. But yeah, at one point in the game, somebody slashes the water tank, and it gets leaked out all over the desert, and then a swarm of locusts come in the second half and just start preying on the remains.
Jamie, I agree with your critique that the curse aspect of the game was not tapped into enough. It would be really nice, as you said, if there was a day and night segment where as days went on, maybe we wake up and there's just a huge locust swarm that everyone has to take place shelter in a tent or something.
Yeah.
Like, they could have played their cards so much nicer so that it was more of like a scripted case in which, you know, progress another day, another part of the curse takes place. That would have been really cool and made the game a lot more scary.
Secret of the Shadow Ranch is scarier than this game.
I know, it's disappointing. It's disappointing. But what's your favorite part of the game, all in all?
My favorite part of the game, atmosphere-wise... man, I think that about 75% through the game, or near that point, you have, like, a 20-minute stretch where you find, like, 3 different secret passageways, and you're just on a grind of progress, and it's just awesome puzzle after awesome puzzle with great mechanics and logical solutions. I love that stretch in this game where it's just a non-stop powerhouse of progress, and you just keep on exploring and updating your map.
Yeah, I was just going to say, updating the map was really cool. We get a map, it's one of the first inventory items we can pick up, and as we explore more throughout, Nancy will go in detail label parts of the map that previously didn't exist. So that was cool.
This game, past a couple of the puzzles, it kind of has a Kapu Cave thing going on again, where there's one puzzle that just breaks the flow of everything, which the Frastro puzzle in that game. And I'd say that puzzle in this game is probably opening up the Nefertari's tomb with the name of the daughters, the false tomb. And once you get that done, whether it be by spoilers or by legitimately looking through all the pantheons and relics and stuff to figure out what it is, once you have that part done, you just get into a really, really good flow of just puzzle after puzzle, just cracking them all out, and they're just really well done and clever.
Alrighty, I think we should review the ending of the game now, which I have some critiques for, one of which is John spawning out of nowhere to save the day, completely illogical, but that's besides the point.
Deus Ex John.
Let's build into the ending, which I think was extremely well done.
Wait, no, I'm sorry. John Ex Machina. I just said God from John instead of John from the Machine.
The ending of this game is really well done in the sense that our hand is forced to stay in the tomb because there's a sandstorm outside that's blocked rubble, and we just can't exit the tomb, with the 3 characters left, one of which is obviously the culprit. This was a little eerie. It was kind of creepy, but there was no real threat at the same time. What happens is we find the true tomb. We actually find Nefertari's dead body. It's the real deal. And we turn around, there's Lily. And Lily's giving her grand culprit spiel. I was like, pretty much confirmed Lily's the main culprit of the game. And then...
Lily is over party.
Yeah, it wasn't Lily. She was talking about how she's working for Abdullah and doing all his petty requests and that he's the real mastermind here. Except he's not. Jamila is, but that's a separate discussion. Jamila goes full hero mode and helps Lily when rubble falls on her and we're trying to get help but we're blocked in. She mentions that there's a secret hidden way out of the tomb, and she gives us a key that opens a gate that we can navigate up on top of the tomb, and then we get a really clever in-game puzzle with Abdullah.
Now, Now, hold up. I gotta slow down for a second and bring up some stuff. First, I love the Paths of Destiny puzzle that's like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where you have to step on the right letters on the floor to spell out Mescanet, Destiny, which was the name of Nefertari's cat, because she loved her cat, and cats were like sacred in ancient Egyptian culture. One thing that I have a huge problem with that they completely glossed over: why is there the wrought iron fence with a padlock on it in the middle of the site? Now, the implied explanation is that Jamila and her secret society have known for a very, very long time where this place is. And apparently they installed that gate, is what I'm guessing. And that's why Jamila has the key, and it's like their fallback escape in case things cave in. But then you start to wonder, like, has it been there before QV66, and why they didn't just, like, gnaw off the padlock?
Well, now, my critique is that we never actually find the bodies of the Lost Expedition team.
That's true. I never thought about that.
I know. It's like, where the heck did they teleport out of there?
God, that would have been such a great opportunity for the game to be scary again.
I know, if we found their dead bodies or something.
That would be insane, yeah.
I mean, they're actually like a key part of exposition and helping us find puzzles and all this stuff, but...
In the corner of one of their notes, they actually had a pivotal little set of hieroglyphs that were translated to Beloved of, which I had no idea that's how you figure that out. That's for the Nefertari's children puzzle. But at the same time, like... We've had skeletons of unfortunately dead people before. We've had Jake Hurley's skeleton. Why wouldn't they just throw in a bunch of skeletons in this game?
Yeah, that was weird that they just remissed them like that. But...
Maybe they just forgot. Abdullah is a fake good archaeologist, man. He has been caught staging his sites all the time, where he just like throws down pieces that he personally owns and claims that he found them on the site. He stages for publicity. And it sounds like that's what this whole thing is to him. He just wants to continue his reputation of being the best. And honestly, he's kind of going for the Laurie Gerard treatment, where he's just kind of trying to make it as much of a tragic sight as possible to make him look like more of a hero in this harrowing tragedy. Really, the ego has just gone to his head. He wants to be able to, like, sell a lot of these pieces, I guess, or whatnot. But... parts of his motive are just muddied, honestly. All we know for certain is he's super aggressive, he's super egotistical, and he wants this site to be his, because he believes he is the best, and he will stop at nothing to make other people believe that too.
So, Jamila, she saves Lily. We never see that actually happen. I don't even know how it can happen, because she's blocked off from both areas. I know this because I checked. But we try to escape through this hidden passageway that's never been mentioned before, and I don't even know how, like architecturally there's a hidden passage. Like, there was just one entrance in the sand. There's no, like, hidden, like, entrance out from the ground. I didn't get that.
Once again, the endgame challenge of just playing hopscotch across the rocks to get out before Abdullah does.
It was repeated.
Recycled again from game 15. This is the first time I'm realizing that there are a lot of thematic and puzzle similarities between those two games.
Yeah, but I guess that's the true endgame puzzle, but what I really liked was the twisting the gods' heads around on the correct body.
Oh, that was cool, just because whenever you got it wrong, it gave you, like, a real sense of panic that, like, the floor below you was sweeping in.
Yeah, that's another good puzzle I should have mentioned in puzzles was... I'm gonna call that an endgame puzzle, though I don't like the interaction with Abdullah. Yeah. After you beat Abdullah, though, you make it out of the tomb, he's just standing there. He beat us, I guess. And then he's going on his spiel. I think he raises, like, a bone or something to knock us out with.
No, you're thinking of Emily from Games.
Oh, yeah. No, but John raises a bone to knock us out.
Okay, someone raises a bone or something. Basically, John whacks Abdullah in the back of the head with something blunt. And, that's that.
Which was, like, poetic, in a sense.
Yeah, kind of. Taken out by a piece of his own dig.
No, because that's what happened to John. Because he got knocked over the head by Abdullah at the start.
This whole game was just John getting revenge.
Essentially, but also, John was hospitalized. Where did he come from?
Yeah, good point. Why did the sandstorm magically clear up? A lot of this game's ending. Gosh, now I'm seeing similarities between... Okay, this game, thematically, feels like a complete combination of Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon and Creature of Kapu Cave. And I'd say that it's better than Kapu Cave, but not as good as Blue Moon Canyon.
Yeah, there's some real plot holes at the end of the game that I can't look over.
I wish that the game had a more coherent ending. I think that the end game challenges are decent for the most part, but the resolution to a lot of things are silly. Abdullah never gets a culprit monologue. That made me angry. they went for this whole subverting your expectations thing. Just like, Lily's here giving a culprit monologue. She must be the culprit. And then she's not. Abdullah, the character who had such amazing dialogue for so much of the game, doesn't get his own culprit monologue.
I know.
That just... I'm never really realizing it until now, but that just always upset me.
Because John hit him over the back of the head.
Yeah, John, what are you doing? You deprived me of my satisfaction.
Come on, John. I guess yeah. Okay, let's get into plastering an official grade onto this game.
So, just to cover how we rank these games real quick, we like to give letters on a scale instead of numbers 1 out of 10, because some Nancy Drew games are better on paper than they are in practice. So we grade from A to F, A being great, F being terrible, and S tier being reserved for the best of the best above all the other games.
Okay.
This game is so much better in my memory, honestly.
Yeah, that's the harsh reality of it. I'm going to be brutal here. I'm giving it a C.
Oh.
Yeah, this is a C Nancy Drew
Worse
game.
than Alibi and Ashes? No way.
Yeah, I think so. I can't...
Reiterate your reasoning.
Okay. Glaring plot holes at the end of the game. Abdullah found another secret passageway that he beat us out when there's already one entrance in and out of the tomb. It made no sense. Abdullah would have... Also, this game would have done so much better if it had like a scare factor. The curse aspect was not dwelled on that much. And Dylan, well, let's just be frank, he was pretty useless. Also, they completely dropped the whole black market subplot.
Yeah.
Like, it was there for, like, one cheeky puzzle, and then they dropped it. I didn't like Lily's character that much. I love Jamila. The music, not that good. Okay. I mean, it is good, but it's like...
Here's a unique description I can give to this game. This is probably the only game with an amazing setting, but a subpar soundtrack.
Yeah, sure. I agree with that. And the setting is really nice. The puzzles are really nice, but there's too many things that I can't look past.
Okay. To me, this game is a mega polarized mixed bag. There are things about it that are really, really cool, like how it can synchronize puzzles with education and still make it interesting and educational. And then it's like, hey, we have all these cool suspects and character routes, and then some of them go nowhere. The culprit never has a culprit monologue. We hardly get to see Dylan for the second half of the game, and he was a lot of fun.
John mastered teleportation
Yes,
off screen.
John has Rick Sanchez portal gun. Man, it's... But then again, there's things that I love again, too. The atmosphere is amazing. I just have a thing for ancient Egyptian media, like I've said a million times. I love these kind of stories.
That's what I'm going off, too, is that it's not a bad game, but the bad outshines the good more. Ugh, yeah, it's just so conflicted.
This game, there's a lot that they did really good, and then a lot that they could have done better. So, I can't be as brutal as you. And it's not because of my nostalgia for this game. I'm going to go ahead and give it a B. I'd probably say... I can't even compare this game to Alibi and Ashes. They are so different. But this game, it's decent. It's probably I'll say this, is my least favorite game that Hotchkiss is in. I like Treasure on the Royal Tower and Crystal Skull much more than this game. But, man, it's always just such a comfort food of a game to me, you know? This is the kind of game that is one I can turn on, just have fun with the puzzles if I haven't played it for a good while.
Yeah, I guess that sums it up really well.
I think it has some decent replayability, and the game really grips you for the first 3 quarters. The last quarter, though, everything just gets a little sloppy.
Alright.
Okay.
Well,
that concludes our review for Nancy Drew, Tomb of the Lost Queen. Went into this one thinking that I was gonna speak higher of it than I did at the end.
I know. It's interesting that I think the game's true colors came to light the more we talked about it.
But really, it's a fun game. I can give it that. But parts of it just don't pan out in the end. Simple as that. Next 2 games in the series, this is interesting. 25 and 26 we were not the biggest fans of. 27 and 28 are 2 of Julian and I's personal favorites. Those are going to be some good, chunky, long reviews. We will go in-depth to the soundtrack with like 7 or more tracks. It's going to be a blast.
Alright everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Let us know what you thought on the game too. If you are a die-hard stan of Tomb of the Lost Queen, let us hear why, because I'm frankly interested why. If you had any dire music tracks that we missed or any favorites that we listed, let us know too. So, with that, thanks for listening everybody, and be sure to vote for Holt.
Vote for Holt, everybody.